Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. The picture really is unclear, and I suppose that sends a signal to the markets that we are in for a time of uncertainty. How do you think they're going to react to that?
Well, fortunately, the markets have been particularly focused on Greece and on the Eurozone problems over the last few days. And the markets, simple folk, and they like to have one problem at a time. So we have been somewhat protected from this uncertainty. I think there has, however, been in the markets a general assumption that we would probably get a Conservative-led government.
Yes.
And therefore, if that does not happen, and it may not, then I expect there might be some sterling weakness. And indeed, we're seeing a bit of that this morning. But it's very difficult to read because the markets are all over the place at the moment. Yesterday we had the most remarkable intraday movements in New York. Some of them may have been accidental, but they created great market panic for a while. So it's very hard to read. I mean, my hunch is the markets will allow a process for a few days of negotiation to see what deal can be done before sterling or the gilt market really falls out of bed. But I don't think we've got very long.
You see, overall, there has been this idea, has there not, that Britain has almost been on probation as far as the markets were concerned. Judgment has been suspended until this general election. But we are looking for a very credible sign as to how we'll cut the deficit, a very detailed and credible outline. Is that likely to happen if we've got either a minority government or a very weak coalition government?
Yeah, I think you're right that the markets have understood that during an election campaign, you're not going to get great clarity about how many jobs are going to go in which parts of the public sector. So what they're looking for is a budget which presents a plan and puts some flesh on the bones. So the question for both sides, never mind all the electoral reform, which is all jolly interesting, but isn't actually our biggest problem at this point, is can the two parties who come together agree a budget, in other words, agree what proportion of tax revenues are going to go up and spending down, where those cuts are going to fall, and get that through the House of Commons.
And when we talk about about two parties coming together, of course, it is the Conservative Party that have got the biggest point of difference, and that is the idea that they would bring in £6 billion worth of deficit cuts this year. Do you think that that is likely to be a stumbling block for any coalition with the Liberal Democrats?
My own view, that's very unlikely, because actually that is very uncertain as precisely what it's going to be. The key things now will not be these numbers. The key things will be actual concrete steps. Are they prepared to agree a public sector pay freeze, for example, which would be one way of achieving those kinds of numbers? Would the Liberal Democrats acquiesce in that? So I don't think it's going to be about that number. I think it's going to be about real measures, and that's what the market's looking for.
Now, in terms of the FSA, there was a lot of talk about the FSA, banking regulation. Do you think that, as far as the Tories are concerned, that's something that's going to fall down their agenda now if they're in a weak position in a minority government?
Well, certainly the Liberal Democrats aren't very keen on the Conservative ideas, and it doesn't strike me, listening to people, that this is anywhere in their top 20
that
of
wouldn't
priorities.
be one of their red line policies, so to speak.
I don't think so. I think we have got a new regime with a Financial Stability Committee, which was put in place by this government, which is looking at financial sector oversight. So I don't know. I suspect this isn't an absolutely number one priority, although the Conservatives do say they're still committed to making a change.
Indeed. Now, we've got a Bank of England decision coming up on Monday. What is your forecast for that?
I think that it's very unlikely that there will be any change. I should think the Bank of England will remain on hold. I think there are all kinds of good economic reasons for remaining on hold, but frankly there are one or two good political reasons as well. I doubt if the Bank of England would wish to be seen to be intervening in this debate. That's not the tradition of the Bank of England.
And so overall, you think the markets are going to give a couple of days grace, perhaps the weekend, to the parties to sort something out?
I think so. I think that people can see that the position is very difficult. I don't think you can say that our politicians are being unreasonable at this point. I mean, it's a bit of a shock, this, and it's about the most uncertain outcome that could have been.
Indeed.
And therefore, I think the markets will allow some time. But as I say, I don't think that it will be very long, because for other reasons, nothing to do with our politics, the markets are in a very nervous state.
Howard Davies, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.